everyone. Thank you. Wow. So I'd like to introduce Sue, who we've already met earlier this evening. And tonight, Sue is going to be speaking about communication styles. Sue is a professional coach and trainer for It's Understood Communication and also for Lead Into It. So her specialty is interaction work. And Sue teaches coaching and facilitation programs accredited by IC Agile. Sue also speaks at many conferences.
That's right.
And including the upcoming, she's facilitating the upcoming Agile Coach Camp East in Cornwall. And I'm a big fan of Sue's very positive energy. So please join me in welcoming Sue.
So, who has a clue what this number is? It's the population of the Earth as of about 8 o'clock last night, estimated more or less, not too precise. But there were 7 billion and a bunch more people sitting on this planet, and each and every one of them is a unique and special snowflake, just like all of us are in this room. And so that makes it kind of challenging when we're looking at the first value of the Agile Manifesto, which talks about individuals and interactions being, the very important thing in the basis of Agile, because interaction is kind of difficult if we're all different. However, we've sort of established, psychologists and other people over many, many years have found that there are some predictable ways that people do behave and that they process information and can communicate. So that's what we're here to talk about for about the next 40 minutes. We'll look at different styles. We'll have a little exercise where you'll discover your own style. And we'll look at some ways that we can develop strategies for communicating and interacting with people who are not our style. Now, who has ever run into somebody in the workplace and they're kind of like, wow, they must be crazy? Yeah? Yeah, we've run it. And they may be thinking the same thing about us. But like the big idea, we'll get to that. The big idea is kind of like we need to see our differences as something other than flaws. And in the Myers-Briggs literature, there's a book called I'm Not Crazy, I'm Just Not You. And so that's this whole issue of differences between people and how it impacts our communication and their interaction is what we'll talk about for a while. Now, I had a lovely introduction by Jillian. That's me at a glance. The pieces that are important here are, these are all the organizations where I've either worked or studied. And they've shaped a lot of my thinking and where this comes from. As we said, I'm a coach. I developed this material for my book, Talk to Me, Workplace Conversations That Work, which some of you have read. And I'm a trainer, and I'm also an organizer of Spark the Change, so talk to me at the end. I have coupons for a discount, and that's kind of really it. So here we are with our big idea. We're not crazy, we're just not you. So as far as the backlog goes, here we are. We'll work our way through it in the 40 minutes to come. I don't want anyone to be stuck because they're not understanding something. So if you have a question, please do ask it. We don't have a lot of time for questions, but rather than have you kind of be confused, I'd rather have you ask. So we're going to look at the theory. Okay. Who in this room has blue eyes? Okay, we've got a bunch of blue eyes in here. Let's talk about your blue eyes. Have you had them for a long time? As long as you can remember, right? And you were born with them probably, right?
Yes.
Could you change them if you wanted to?
With the help of contacts, perhaps?
Contacts, yeah, Amanda, yeah. Oh, there's all kinds of interesting pyrotechnics going on. Yeah, so blue eyes, we're kind of stuck with them. We could change them through physical means, but we're there. Who's left-handed? Oh, we got one there in a green shirt. Okay. Left-handed. How long have you been left-handed? Whole life long, yeah. Now, if you, by sad chance, were injured, you sprained your left arm, could you learn to use your right to do things? Yeah. And how would that be?
It would be different.
Different. Take some time. It's not innate. Your preference is to use the left, but if you were pressed, you could come up with your right hand. Yeah, cool. Who here is not a morning person. Same people, interesting, blue eyes and left-handed. Okay, let's pick on Fernando. He's not a morning person. If by chance you lived in Waterloo, as I do, and you had a client in Toronto, and the only way you could get to them was to be on the GO train at 5:45, could you adapt? You would hate it, but you could do it. Exactly. So this is something you could learn to do. You could adapt your style, your personal preference for sleeping in to move ahead. Do you see where this might be going? We're going to be talking about some things. The tool that I'm going to be giving you is a little bit about innate things. It's a little bit about things we can change through learning. It's a little bit about things we can consciously adapt to. Who speaks multiple languages? All the same people. This is so interesting. And look how many. Okay, let's pick you, sweet. What many languages do you speak?
5.
5. Okay, so what is your first language?
Chinese.
Chinese. Which one?
Fujian. Mandarin. Cantonese.
3 Chinese dialects she speaks. Okay, so which is the one that you're most comfortable in of all the languages you speak?
English.
Okay. If you were stranded in Hong Kong, could you speak Cantonese well enough to? Yeah, fluently. So there are things that we can learn. Now, the chances of me ever being fluent in Cantonese are 0 to none, but this is something that you have learned to be able to speak in these 5 languages. So the tool that we're going to be giving you is a little bit innate, a little bit learned, and a little bit consciously selected. Another of the principles that kind of lies behind this is that we may think that we are communicating effectively. We may think that we have told somebody something, but until we see what they do with the information we gave them, we really don't know what we said, because they decide what we said. They take it through their filters. They look at their experience. They look at how they process information. And so they kind of make up their own minds about what we said. So the tool that we're going to talk about today will help us communicate in a way that increases the chances that they will get the intended meaning that we sent rather than one they made up themselves. Knowing about communication styles can help us do that. And this is kind of, I think, the last sort of big part of the theory. This is Susie's 4 laws of conscious communication. And the ones that are important to us for our purposes today are know your audience and know yourself. Know your purpose, know your message, that's another presentation. But know your audience is the people that we're talking with, and know yourself. There's a little bit of that in this as well. This comes originally, the names that we're going to be using to describe the characters we'll meet are actually coming from Plato. So this is going back a long, long time. And then it's based on work that was done by psychologist Carl Jung, Myers-Briggs, it's sort of Myers-Briggs-like, and Keirsey's temperaments work. And I did it because I'm certified in both Keirsey and Myers-Briggs, and I wanted something that didn't take 4 days to explain, that I could use in presentations and in my book. So I wanted a simple model. So while this isn't exact science for anybody in the room who's sciencey and very, very sort of rational and literal, but it's a good model that explains how we're different, and we can play with it, and it can be useful for us. So as I said, it's not hard science, but it comes out of things that have been tested and validated. So there's an assessment, and people are standing in the room ready to hand them out. David, Joanne, everybody gets one. And so do it quickly. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this. There is a type, a communication style, that for whom 5 minutes will not be enough. I can guarantee it. So I'm going to ask you to just don't overthink this. Don't overthink this. Go with your first reaction. I think we might need the lights on. And I'm going to start my timer now. You have 5 minutes. Well, it's coming. Joanna's coming. She's only one person. As your mother said, I only have 2 hands. Hands up if you don't have. Mike will look after you. So use the side of the assessment that is showing on the slide. Don't go over the page yet. But there's one answer. Pick the one that comes to you most naturally. This is not a test. What this is trying to do is figure out what is your preference. And you probably didn't notice it, but when we were setting up, we were playing Who Are You by The Who, and we were not trying to make you think it was a CSI rerun, but, you know, think about that idea, who are you, who, because that is what you're doing here. You're discovering that. I tell you, we got AV here. Don't overthink it. There will be at least 10%, if not 40, who will overthink this and will turn it into a big hairy deal. So you got 1 minute left. Do you have your fast pen out, Jillian? If you have time, because you raced through this as an excellent specimen of another type, tally up your A's, B's, C's, and D's, but don't turn your page over. And you can always hire a mathy to do it if you don't want to. I'd say you have like 10 seconds left. Who needs more time? There's always a few. I'll give you another 15 seconds. Thank you, helpers, by the way. We couldn't do this without you. Okay. So the way this theory works is that there are some dichotomies or continuums or whatever you want to call it. There are some people who take in information and make decisions based on stuff that is logical in their head. And there are some people who, by contrast, I'm trying to remember to speak English here, by contrast are driven more by their feelings, by the heart, by the emotion. So that's one of the dichotomies. The other, there are certain people who need to see things, sense things through their senses, hear it, smell it, taste it, feel it, as in tactile feeling, not emotional feeling, evidence. And then there are other people who can make decisions or know something just on gut feel or in an intuitive way of being. And all of these things will work for us, and all of us have all of them. But for some of us, a preference is there. And the way it works is there's a character we call the guardian who's driven by head things, logic, and needs to see evidence. And so the way it fills out, there are 4 characters, and in each of the quadrants, there's a kind of style that is preferred, and they have specific characteristics. So we're going to get into meeting the characters now. We have the guardian. Now, some of you, guardian cards should land on your tables any moment, thanks to the lovely owls. So you'll get guardian cards. You can keep all these cards, okay? The reason you can keep them is my branding is all over it. So the guardian is an interesting character. About 40% of the North American population, according to Keirsey, prefer to work in a guardian style. And Plato is the one who came up with the term guardian, but they are driven by security. We've worked with people like this. We are people like this, some of us. They value being reliable. They like structure. These are the people who follow rules. These are often the people who make the rules. These are the people who know where the bylaws are. They probably wrote them. They're the ones who know where to find everything in JIRA. They're very detail-oriented. They value process. And they, more than any other group, hate change. We all hate it. Like even those of us who are advocates for change. Agile coach, anyone? Yeah. But we hate it too. So they hate change more than anyone. So if you look at your card, you'll see that, that on the back of it, I pulled together some sort of things like the Guardian style at a glance, and then how to communicate with a Guardian. And then there's also a stress pattern. So when Guardians get stressed, and this is very important for interactions, Agile value number 1, we got to know kind of what stresses them out and how to deal with them then. So that's the Guardian, and some of you may be that person, and all of us, I can pretty much guarantee, work with them. And we have the Rational. Now, generally speaking, only 10% of the population. I find them significantly overrepresented in our industry of software development. I am married to an art rational. The idea is the beauty. The beauty of the idea, they're in love with that. They're driven by knowledge, finding knowledge, gaining knowledge, learning things. They value logic. They see the big picture. Their time horizon is the future. If we go back to the Guardian, his time horizon is the past. They believe in the things that used to be, and they want to sort of keep things stable. They're the ones who believe in best practices, and they want them. These people, they're more future-oriented, goal-oriented. They see the big picture. Don't bore them with details. They want to see the strategy. They want to know that your logic is sound. Never forget that. The Rational, when I think of popular culture, if we think about Star Trek, for example, there's a couple of really good examples of rationals in there. Who? Spock is one, yeah. And if we go to Next Generation, Data, yes. So they are all about the ideas, And you may remember poor old Data. He was trying to get feeling, right? There was a long space where he was trying to do feeling. Anyway, the Rational use facts. They want to see the big picture. They trust logic more than anything. And this is the kind of guy that will, because intuition is also in their pattern, they may have an intuitive sense that something is the right way to do it, and then they will retrofit that idea with logic and evidence. Has anyone ever been sent out to find the logic and evidence that will support your boss's gut feeling? I used to work in public affairs in banks. We used to have that all the time. So then we have the artisan. Now, if you don't have an artisan on your team, you probably need to invent one. These are generally 40% of the population. I have never run into an organization that has that many. It may be that I've worked in the wrong places. But when I think of the archetype of the artisan, I think of MacGyver. Is anyone old enough to remember MacGyver? Yeah, you're trapped in an elevator. He's got a piece of gum and you got an earring. And he builds an explosive device and freeze you all, right? So MacGyver is an artisan. They are driven by, they live in the moment. They are spontaneous. They value speed. They will take risks, not crazy risks, but they will take them, and they are good at improvising. And I worked at a famous Eastern university for a couple of years, and on my team we had one of these. And if she was away, nothing happened. Nothing. We were all rationals, and the next group, which you'll hear about in a sec. And so if Fatima wasn't in the office, nothing happened. I kid you not. So the artisan, if you look at the card, there'll be some clues about how they are. Our artisans live in the moment more than any group. They are living for now. And so they're the ones in the meeting that are going, what can we do about this? What can we do about this? So if you're in a strategy meeting and you're talking to a bunch of rationals and you've got all these idealists who are coming up and they're talking about the people and the impact, the artisan is sitting there going, give me something to do. That's their feeling because they need to do something, action-oriented. And the last person, idealist. 10% of the population, overrepresented amongst Agile coaches, I will say, probably, driven by identity. And it isn't just their identity, it's yours also. So they want to make you the best you can be. And for some people, that is really annoying. However, it's the way they are. 10% of the population, as I said, they're empathetic. When I think of a character in Star Trek again, who remember? Counselor Troy. She was the educator, she was the counselor, she was a Betazoid, she was the empath. She knew what people were thinking and feeling. So they like to avoid conflict, they're very inspiring. They think, like the rational, they think in the future. Their focus is on people and feelings rule. So if you look at their profile on the cards, one of the things about idealists, if they are stressed, they can be mean, which is so not them. But all of us sort of go into the negative pattern when we're stressed. But if you're wanting to talk to idealists, there are certain ways that you'll want to talk, and we'll practice that later. I will share with you that I'm an idealist, and I came out of journalism, where our job was to afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted. And I went into a famous bank. And I was all passion and, we must do this and we have to do this and this will take us, into the hearts of our employees. I was the employee communications manager. And the people are looking at me like I just arrived from Jupiter. And I realized that if I was going to be taken seriously in that organization, and I eventually was, that I was going to need to have a little bit of a different tone. So I started looking around and saw how people were behaving, and I was able to adopt rational behaviors, guardian behaviors, artisan behaviors, and have my own without really hurting my own individuality or personality. I was just able to sort of flex my own style for the context, and that's what we're going to kind of do in the next few minutes. So is that sort of clearish? Do we all know people like that? So we're going to find out who you are. So guardians, stick up your hands. Oh, you have to figure out how it is. Oh yeah, the A's. If you picked mostly A's, you are probably preferring the guardian style. So who had lots of A's? We need them. These are the people that keep us from driving off the bridge, right? They're underrepresented in the Agile world. We need them. Generally, 40% of the population. Did we look around and see 40% of us? So, guardians, that's a small group here. Who comes in the B style, rational style? Yes, 10% of the North American population, slightly overrepresented amongst software people. Where are my artisans? Yes, we have some. Yes, we have lots. Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, and then where are the idealists? Okay, so well-represented artisans and idealists, yay. So what we're going to do next is really hard. This is like putting bees in a bag, and that's why we have so many helpers here. We're going to try to get you into style-alike groups, and then you're going to talk about your style and its impact on your interactions and those of other people. Agile is all about communication, conversations, and so knowing somebody else's style is really going to help you communicate and interact with them. You get more done because people are working in the way they want to work, and they're understanding what it is you're trying to get them to do. So there's all kinds of reasons why this might be useful. And like I said before, it's not hard science. You're not going to find this, in some psychological journal. But it really matters for us to really be thinking about diversity in terms that are more than, women and race and stuff like that. Diversity is about how we think as well. And so taking that into account really helps us. So I took this lovely quote from Maya Angelou. I note the obvious differences between each sort and type, but we are more alike, my friends, than we are unalike. And so we're done. And That's if you want to contact me or find me with more questions. And if you are interested in coming to Spark the Changes, the conference, which is happening at the Toronto Science Centre June 9th and 10th, Joanna is also on the committee. And we have cards here that will give you a discount of 10% if you do want to come as a friend of Lean Into It. So I thank you, and I wish you well with all of this. So thanks so much.